So I am going to kick us off and then pass it over to Bree to give some overview of the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Project. But just as a quick level set, HUD released a few weeks ago, round 8 of the YHDP, or the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Grant. And that is what we are here to kind of update you on and answer any questions on. So Bree, I'll kick it over to you to start.
Awesome. Can you hear me okay? Okay, I'm barely vocal, y'all, so bear with me. But my name is Bree Torres. My pronouns are she, her. I'm with LifeWorks Austin. Super excited to talk to y'all about this today. Never thought we would be having this conversation again, so it's just kind of wild. But essentially, just to orient folks, level set, YHDP is what we call it here locally for short. That's the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program. It was an initiative that HUD launched quite some time ago with special earmarked dollars reserved for youth experiencing homelessness. And it was really seeded as an idea, like how can we get creative in community to figure out the alternative solutions that young people might need to end their homelessness, recognizing that's a very different population than older adults experiencing homelessness. So the goal was always to reduce the number of youth experiencing homelessness across the country. YHDP was initially designed to support selected communities of all types. You'll see here in the map, we've got some states represented, but essentially to develop and implement a coordinated community approach to preventing and ending youth homelessness in their community. Our COC was awarded in the very first round of YHDP. You'll hear the word round a lot. That's how folks talk about it. So round 1 of YHDP, we were one of the first communities awarded. It was us and 9 others. And we were awarded a total of $5.2 million towards YHDP projects. That 5.2 spans over a 2-year grant term, but 5.2 million. Funds for round 1 were renewed non-competitively, which is one of the reasons this group probably hasn't discussed this as much as we're asking you to now. Until our last local competition, FY23 COC NOFO, we did have to compete the projects. And during that NOFO competition, we ended up losing funding for one of those projects. We call it PORT here at LifeWorks. It's sometimes called the joint component. It's a 2-component project type from HUD of transitional housing and rapid rehousing. It's fairly new. There are no other projects like that in Austin. So yeah, a little bit of background. And here there's a map that you can find on the HUD Exchange, and it's just all of the communities that have been awarded YHDP up through round 7. So you'll see there's a little legend down there that'll correspond with the year that a community was awarded. And like I said, you'll see lots of states and balance of states on there too. But yeah, go ahead, Maya. So what happened to the money, right? What happened to the 5.2 million? So again, as a community, we were awarded 5.2 million. Then through this comprehensive design process with young people with expertise really leading the way, our community designed projects that we thought would be fantastic and effective interventions for young people experiencing homelessness. LifeWorks ended up being the grantee for all 3, but that was not by design. So again, these projects were designed as a community, not necessarily as an agency here at LifeWorks. One project that is alive and well, we call it Rapid Rehousing Plus here at LifeWorks. We call it that because it's the rapid rehousing model with a special waiver to allow us to extend rental assistance up to 36 months instead of that typical 24-month cap for rapid rehousing. It is a massive project up and running. We have 2 sub-recipients with Caritas of Austin and Safe Austin, both helping us to operate that project. Additionally is the PORT program, which I was saying is now currently sunsetting. It's a joint transitional housing and rapid rehousing project. Again, one of the newer or the newest project designs from HUD. So it requires you to enter a young person into both project types simultaneously. And it's really, the idea there is a young person can decide, I want transitional, I want permanent housing, and they can actually kind of go in and out of those 2 designs as to whatever meets their needs. And that was 1.5. And then finally, we call it diversion for short here at LifeWorks, but a deeper diversion project that was a supportive service only design. Really, the idea there was to work with system partners, primarily juvenile justice, DFPS, and AISD, to go upstream into those systems that we know are kind of the greatest predictors of homelessness for young folk. try to intervene early on and see if there's any sort of resolution that we can offer to divert them from the homeless response system entirely. That project is also naturally sunsetting now and will actually be replaced with a permanent supportive housing project here at LifeWorks. Yeah.
Thanks, Bree. So I'm going to talk through a little bit of where we are now. All of those projects, as Bree mentioned, were awarded in round 1 in 2016 up until now. Every round has gone to newly awarded communities. So HUD has not allowed like a repeat application from a community that was previously awarded. That changed in round 8, which was released on June 6th, just a few weeks ago. HUD had kind of a short list of communities that were funded in round 1 and round 2 that are eligible to reapply in round 8. And Austin has made that short list. And so there are different kind of priorities within round 8. Again, the intention is still to primarily fund newer communities, COCs and balances of state that have not previously been awarded. But there is an opportunity for us to get awarded again through round 8. We can apply for a maximum of 15 million and a minimum of 600,000 for all of the kind of usual component types that HUD allows. So that is permanent housing, both PSH and rapid rehousing, as well as transitional housing and that joint component that Bree was speaking to that we applied for last time, and then supportive services only, which is typically either a diversion project or a street outreach project. We also have additional kind of eligible activities under YHDP that are a little bit different from the regular COC program. Bree gave one example, which we utilized for 2016, which is extending the amount of time a client can be enrolled in a rapid rehousing program. There are a lot of other kind of small but very significant differences in YHDP from COC, but those are kind of the primary component types or program design structures. We are also able to receive a planning grant as well as apply for additional dollars through a planning grant with YHDP, which would only cover administrative costs associated with administering the YHDP program. So it's more limited than the planning grant that ECHO receives through the COC NOFO. The process, however, for applying for YHDP looks very, very different than the COC NOFO process that we are all familiar with. It's a much longer timeline with much more kind of separate components throughout the timeline. So in totality, it's a little bit over a year of like application timeline. That year is split up into a couple of different phases. We are now in phase 1, which ends at the end of August. August 29th is when our application to HUD is due. That is a very simple application. It is more similar to kind of like a narrative essay than it is the collaborative application we're used to submitting for the COC NOFO. ECHO is working very closely in collaboration with AYC, which is the Austin Youth Collective, and with LifeWorks to put that narrative together. And that is really just to apply to HUD on behalf of our COC to be selected for the award. So we're not applying for any projects. We're not applying for a specific amount of money. We're just asking to be considered. If HUD selects us as a community, that's when we begin phase 2, which is a planning process that will much more heavily involve you all, not just Leadership Council, but also the various community members that are on this call as well. It's much more of a coordinated process where we kind of identify the types of programs we would want to fund with this award. So that is when in 2016 we identified, we want to make sure we have this robust rapid rehousing program. We want to make sure we have this deeper diversion program. That's really where our biggest needs are, or most impactful use of funding is. Once we identify those components, that's when we have something more similar to what we know as a local competition, where agencies can apply can submit applications to those specific project types. That's what we see here as phase 3, and that's going to be next summer. So again, like with NOFO, the local competition will have some policy creation that is necessary to kind of scaffold the process. And that is, again, where Leadership Council, as well as the Austin Youth Collective, will play a much more central role, more similar to how we're used to engaging with y'all around a NOFO. This summer, again, is really just kind of submitting almost like a letter of intent on behalf of our community to be able to move on to the planning and competition process. So just to give a little bit more context into what we're working on now, as I mentioned, it is a 25-page essay that is broken down into a couple of different questions that HUD asks us to speak to. YAB, which stands for Youth Action Board Integration, so explaining to HUD how our COC engages our Youth Action Board, which in our community is the Austin Youth Collective. We talk through community need and kind of make the case to HUD for why we should be considered for another award. Speaking to collaboration and the various ways that our COC collaborates across the community and with other kind of adjacent systems working to prevent and end youth homelessness. The AYC has a section of this application that they submit that they will be working on to kind of demonstrate their support for our community going after additional funding. And then we speak to some kind of project performance and capacity from our previously awarded projects from 2016 and kind of give HUD some examples of areas we think we would be able to improve performance or expand project impact if we were awarded additional funding. You can see here it really is, I think, very much a LifeWorks AYC ECHO collaborative project, and that's the process that we have put in place as well. So we have some links in here for more resources that are in your board packet. So you should be able to go see if you're interested in looking at the YHDP competition webpage, reading our coordinated community plan from last cycle, 2016, or the NOFO itself for the YHDP if you're feeling really crazy. But that's all we got for y'all.